Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Each week, we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes, randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
What up, what up?
And a man who has delivered a foal on multiple occasions, Mr. Bob Leahy. Wilbur.
Yikes.
Oh, we'd like to thank you all for joining us as we revisit Chuck Norris's 1990s action movie / sob story drama. Today, we'll recap and review Season 6, Episode 3, Lucas, Part 1, where Walker befriends a young orphan who's really not having a great year. But before we grab our mini cowboy hats, plastic ranger badges, and head on down to the local orphanage to kidnap a few kids, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Looks like CD's is closed for a function.
Doesn't he know it's your birthday week and this is the only day we can get together for it?
Well, he's just acknowledging it's a national holiday.
Yeah, I guess so, but he didn't invite you.
Yeah, that's true. I feel slighted.
I mean,
as you should.
Maybe we'll do what we did last time when they were closed. Maybe hit up his dumpster, grab some dumpster beers, and you can open up your birthday present we got you there.
I love dumpster beers.
Yeah, sounds like the real deal.
But actually, whoa, there actually are some in here.
The idea that a bar would throw away full beers is absurd.
Oh, man. All right. I'm going to hope this doesn't explode. It's a possibility. I found this brown glass bottle, which I can tell from just looking at it, is made from apples from my backyard.
Oh, wow.
It's weird that it found its way all the way to CDs.
Yeah, into the
crazy.
dumpster. He doesn't drink stuff like that. It looks like homemade jankum.
Yeah, it looks like some hooch. It didn't explode.
No, it's definitely fizzy, though.
That's good.
Down with that.
Yeah, I found this beer here from Tailgate Brewery called Trees Sofa King Chronic is the name of the beer. It's a hazy IPA.
I got the Smutty Nose Single Hop Tour a Whole Lot of Citra Double IPA.
Ooh.
I see why they'd be throwing that out.
Yeah.
Evan, how's your apple concoction taste there?
Looks good.
It tastes pretty good.
All right.
Not bad. I don't know what I need to do to make it better, but I'll probably never learn, so.
It's good outlook.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's impressing. I'm glad that you have a depressing beer on your birthday, but hopefully this gift here will cheer things up. Can you describe this package to the listeners, Evan?
It is, it's kind of a shoebox sized bubble mailer.
Okay.
It's pretty unwieldy, and it's clearly padded, something that might be fragile that's padded. If it is fragile, I'd be amazed if it made it in one piece because it was stuffed in my mailbox, which it doesn't even look like it would fit in a mailbox. I don't know how the mailman did it.
When you told me it came in a bubble mailer, I was kind of surprised, honestly.
You know?
That's a pretty big
times.
bubble mailer.
It is.
And I think the return address is from Texas, is it not?
Return address is, yes, from
Try to pronounce that.
Nacogdoches, Texas. It says open on podcast in the address. So, there's no ambiguity there.
Yeah, I didn't want there to be an accidental opening. This was definitely had to be opened on the podcast here for your birthday.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to try opening it now.
And Evan's birthday is May 15th for Evan fans out there. This is all he's getting from me. So, this is a little self-serving, but hopefully he likes it.
All right.
I see a look of confusion.
Oh, boy.
And I see something that's been bubble wrapped inside the bubble mailer, and he's going to have to do a slow unbubble wrap of this.
I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good idea as to what this is already. But a few years ago, I met someone who was working in an MIT lab this was maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and the sole thing that they were researching and developing was a 3D printer. And I was fascinated by this idea that you could get like a virtual 3D blueprint and then essentially print a 3D object in some sort of medium. And this object could be any shape that you want. And the implications for that would be like, wow, you could make like a heart valve, or you could make like so many intricate tiny little parts for something to make a machine work.
I have no idea where you're going with this, Evan.
What I'm saying is, I think that at that time, they never would have assumed that some jamoke would use a 3D printer to print out a bust of Chuck Norris's head. Which is what this appears to be.
If it is actually a bust of Chuck Norris's head, which has yet to be revealed, I mean, they probably could have just stuck a stamp on that sucker and it would have been fine.
A Post-it note and a stamp.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on top of his head. Is he supposed to have a hat?
Oh, we'll explain.
No. All right, let's see it. Let's see it. I got to see this sucker.
That looks pretty good. That looks way better than I thought it would.
It looks better than the coconut. That's true.
Looks like Han Solo.
So it's Chuck Norris, and it's definitely younger Chuck Norris from Lone Wolf McQuade.
Nice.
He's got the bandana around his head, and his nose hasn't gone totally flat.
What color is it?
It's bronze. You know, it's like in Batman when they flip back Shakespeare's head, except it's a Chuck Norris head.
Exactly. Bob and I were going back on the color there, and we settled on bronze. I mean, that was really the only way to go.
All right.
So what you have in their hands there is a Chuck Norris bust headphone holder.
So when you're not using your headphones, it's the perfect place to store them.
So I should keep this like next to my bed, or I could actually bring it to my office. I've got a pair of headphones there for all the Zooms. So I'm going to try this out. I'm going to go radio silent for a minute here.
Okay, yeah, let's see those headphones on that sucker.
Chuck Norris is listening to the podcast right now. I think he likes it.
Oh, man.
Well, thanks, guys. This item gingerly walks the line between creepy and functional.
Yes. What else could you ask for, really? I mean,
I couldn't have predicted it. That's for sure.
That's all we can ask for here.
Yeah.
And Evan, happy birthday. And we're so glad you're alive, man.
Thanks.
another year around the sun, right?
Exactly.
It's really sweet, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, Evan, I give you a lot of grief because you're kind of like a hippie naturalist and that kind of thing. But, you know, like, it really has come in handy with talking about Forest Warrior. So I'd say it's all worth it, all the time you put into it and stuff.
You know, if I can lend my expertise for something, it might as well be Chuck Norris films. So
yeah. And speaking of Forest Warrior, why don't we jump into some of the Forest Warrior fallout from social media? For people who haven't listened, we recently did a podcast on Chuck Norris's 1996 children's film Forest Warrior, in which Chuck Norris is a shape-shifting protector of the forest. And I posted it up on social media on the Legend of Chuck Norris Facebook group, and we heard from Guy Dean. What did he say there, Bob?
He found the VCD here in Hong Kong.
I had to look that up. What is a VCD?
It's a video CD, right?
Is it a non-branded DVD?
I think a VCD might have been the same amount of data you can put on a regular audio CD or CDR or whatever.
Yeah.
They just must use like terrible video compression and get the file size down so small. It's got to look terrible.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say Laserdisc, to be honest, but
Yeah, I know.
this might have been a little bit after Laserdisc.
Man, this website, it looks like your computer's about to like crash.
Right. And this is where we found a link to purchase a VCD of Forest Warrior.
This is a Chinese ripoff of Amazon.
Can you describe the Forest Warrior poster.
Well, the image quality looks about what you'd expect from this VCD.
I think the poster, honestly, I
it's
prefer
better
the
than
VCD poster to the reissue from Gaiam. They really should have taken some cues from this one.
I'm actually really into the description of the film as well. I'm going to do a dramatic reading of it because it warrants that.
Please
Okay,
do.
let's do it. And this comes from the yesasia.com, which is Asian Amazon, it looks like.
Yeah.
Tanglewood Mountain raises its grandiose peaks to the heavens in majestic beauty and tranquility. The pristine wilderness is home to an abundance of wild animals and a group of local youths who find pleasant and harmless moments of escape to a world of fantasy and adventure in their makeshift castle on the mountainside.
Okay.
John, a man skilled in his ways of the wild, is determined to protect the wilderness and its inhabitants from harm in a constant battle against men of greed who will forever devastate this sanctuary of paradise.
Wow, that almost sounds like a totally different movie.
His name is different too, right? John?
Wait, what?
They just call him John because he's an American dude, right?
Yeah, it's easier. Yeah.
I was just amazed that they had it in another format and that Guy, apparently who lives in Hong Kong, recently picked it up.
Solid.
Props to him. We also heard from somebody else.
Yeah, Monica Schneeweiss says, Ein guter Film. Ein Film zum Nachdenken. Man braucht un jeden Wald, so einen Geister unserer Wälder besuchst. Ein guten Waldgeist als Freund wäre nicht schlecht.
Wow, I mean, I don't know what that means, but I'm glad that they wrote that comment. I was amazed that Facebook has a button that says see translation, and you can translate their comment. What'd she say, Bob?
A good movie. A movie to reflect on. You need such a spirit in every forest that protects our forests. A good forest spirit as a friend would not be bad.
I mean, I think we'd all like to be friends with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Monica's right. I mean, I wish there were more Chuck Norris supernatural spirits protecting the forests. So I think we're on the same page there. For listeners of the Forest Warrior podcast, I had pledged to reach out to the yoga company Gaiam because they are the ones that actually re-released Forest Warrior on DVD and Blu-ray. It kind of made sense, but also like they don't sell movies or anything. So I reached out on social media, tagged them, and got nothing. Okay. And before I did that, I emailed the company as well. And maybe we can pull this up here and you guys can see the corporate response to my reaching out to Gaiam, right?
Namaste.
So I said, yeah, Evan, you want to...
That's Adam talking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I was like, Namaste. I recently purchased a copy of Forest Warrior starring Chuck Norris and was amazed that Gaiam released the DVD. If you could shed some light on how this partnership happened, it'd be amazing. Also, the trailer for Little Hercules with Hulk Hogan at the beginning was insane. I'm not expecting a response, but as someone who runs a Walker Texas Ranger podcast and has sold Gaiam products when I worked at a holistic living company, I felt it my duty to reach out. Also, my brother is an avid birder and naturalist.
Oh, boy.
He noticed that the redone DVD cover for Gaiam's release of Forest Warrior included a different species of bear and eagle on the cover than was featured in the film.
You think they even read to this point?
I don't know. We really don't want your Photoshop guru to lose their job, but we do want to punish them by making them watch Forest Warrior. Thanks for your time and ear. If you can provide any insights into how you partnered with Chuck Norris to release this movie and why it's no longer for sale on your website, it would be greatly appreciated.
So when did you send that? April 27th?
Yeah.
You got a response the next day, man.
I did. What did they say there, Evan?
They said, "Hi, Adam. Thank you for contacting Gaiam. Unfortunately, as this title was released long ago, we do not have a lot of detail that we can share. We apologize we aren't able to offer any insight. We do hope that you enjoy the title. Please let us know if we can be an additional assistance. Thank you. And then a bunch of stuff.
So I think I called it, right? They'd be like, we have no idea. Why are you emailing us? But yeah, I will say the response kind of hints that they did some level. Like someone asked someone about this.
Yeah.
You know, someone was just like,
asked around.
Do you guys know anything about this? Everyone's like, Or they looked it up and they're like, oh, we put this movie out in 2001?
They're like, dude, that was Jim's idea. He's gone now.
Yeah, he got canned for this. This cost him his job.
Yeah. We want to give a shout out to Michael Flaxbeard, who purchased one of our Chuck Norris items on our shop on our website. And we have a number of items up there. This one was a Chuck Norris facts book and also included a Roundhouse Roulette sticker. It's priced so that if you buy any of those things, you help us pay for a month of hosting. So we'd like to thank Michael for paying for a month of hosting this podcast.
We thank you. The world may never forgive you.
You're right. Yeah.
You are now complicit in Roundhouse Roulette.
You're part of the problem.
He's probably like, what's Roundhouse Roulette?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we've got an episode to cover tonight. Season 6, Episode 3, Lucas. And if you don't want any spoilers for this one, hit that pause button, watch that episode, and then come right on back. Welcome back. Let's dig into this. This episode originally aired on October 11th, 1997. And it opens up on a bust. It really ropes you in.
You know, this is kind of a legendary Walker episode. We know it's dealing with some heady stuff, and we were kind of hypothesizing that it would open up hot and heavy, and it certainly does here.
Yeah, there's like FBI agents that are coming to raid this guy. Then the FBI agents catch up with Walker and Trevette, and one of the agents is all like, this is Rayford Cobb we're talking about. He's always armed and always dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, oh, this is getting off to a fiery start. This is awesome. And they show some interior shots of like Rayford Cobb's hideout, and there are people making drugs or packaging up cocaine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't call it out. I was kind of hoping it would be a super drug.
Yeah.
But it's just like white mystery powder, cocaine, or whatever.
Yeah. They had blue sheets all over the windows, expertly placed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they bust in, and on these interior shots, we see Rayford Cobb, and he's played by Brian James, who you might recognize from several films, including Blade Runner and The Fifth Element, in which he plays one of the police officers.
He kind of looks like a ferret.
He does.
He's a Weasley guy.
He's really gross looking, yeah.
Yeah, and Evan and I know him from this movie called The Wrong Guys. Have you ever seen that, Bob?
No.
I don't think anyone on Earth has ever seen that movie.
Well, it's amazing because the movie stars Louis Anderson, Richard Belzer, and Richard Lewis, and John Goodman.
Sounds a pretty good lineup.
And it's got Ernie Hudson in it.
Yeah. It's just a really weird movie. But this guy plays a huge part in it. And last night I went back and watched the scene with the squirrel. It was too good.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta watch that movie again. It's a good one.
It's actually available for free streaming on Tubi, I believe. So, The Wrong Guys. It's about these Cub Scouts getting back together to get their arrow of light years after they all went their separate ways. And John Goodman is like a crazed convict who just happens to be on the same mountain as their camping trip. And all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, he sees their scout troop flag and thinks that they're like some FBI Section 7 instead of Den 7. Yeah. And so he like spends all of his time like trying to track them down through the woods.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine, you know,
awesome.
Like Louis Anderson being tracked down by like a Rambo-esque John Goodman.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd see that. Yeah.
Anyway, Brian James is one of the characters in that movie.
So Rayford Cobb, he's a bad dude. He's in there with his girlfriend, we assume, and he's just shouting orders. And he and his girlfriend scramble out a window, and they're actually able to escape. The way they escape is fairly curious, and they're leaving, and then the two FBI agents try to stop them, and he tries to hold his girlfriend hostage and says he'll shoot her. So they put their guns down, and then he shoots one of the FBI agents. We don't know what happens to the other one because we never see that agent ever again. We assume he just let him go.
Yeah, and so Rayford, he hops in the car with his presumed girlfriend, and they get out of there while Walker and company and the FBI are taking care of all the rest of the bad guys and busting up this drug den. And once, things seem pretty settled, it's kind of left down to Trevette and Walker to case the upstairs of the house. Again, as somebody who knows what's coming in this episode, I was just waiting for it.
So I've never seen this episode. So I was expecting a ticking bomb.
Yeah.
Because they're like sneaking around, busting down doors. I'm expecting them to just open a door and there'd be a bomb. And then they run, jump out the window, explodes as they're jumping out the window.
Right.
And I just want to point out one other thing I noticed in this scene. When they first get there, some guys start shooting out the top window. And one of my favorite Walkerisms, the guys outside shoot the guy in the window and he falls forward.
And out the window. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, he clears the building pretty well.
Yeah. But yeah, no. What do they uncover upstairs in one of these rooms?
Yeah, so they take a while going room to room and not finding anything, and they open one door and there's absolutely nothing in there. I'm like, oh, okay. Then they finally open this other door, and at first you just see a chair, and I'm like, okay, maybe this was just like where someone was tortured or something. And then what do we see, Evan?
Well, the whole time you've been hearing rat noises.
Yeah.
And on the chair, there's like a plate of like half-eaten food with like rats all over it. And the camera pans over and like the walls smeared with a brown substance. And you look over and you see a very young Haley Joel Osment, also smeared with a brown substance. I assume they just took a bottle of Hershey's syrup to that room.
Yeah. So it's kind of presumed like he's been held captive in this room, and they haven't even let him out to go to the bathroom, and he's been smearing it on the wall.
Okay. All right.
And he's grasping a photograph of himself with his mother.
And we know that mother is the woman we just saw the bad guy Rayford Cobb with. But anyway, he's holding that photo, and it's like this small closet that this is happening in. They also had like strategically placed bugs on the food too.
And they wanted to put cockroaches on it, but you can't really get your standard
cockroach to stay.
So instead, they employed the animal people to bring in some Madagascar hissing cockroaches to put on the food.
They had a live rat and some cockroaches just chilling on this food tray. And he's kind of huddled in the corner. And honestly, it was kind of upsetting to see.
Yeah. Now, I will say props to the animal trainers.
Most definitely. I mean, that rat did not move.
Nope. And the cockroaches, they were pretty well behaved.
They were indeed. But they got free cheese out of it.
That's true. They trained well.
Anyway, Haley Joel Osment, his character, sees Walker, but kind of winces. Obviously, he's been through God knows what. And Walker kind of senses that, flashes his badge and says, hey, I'm here to help. I'm a ranger. We're going to take care of you. And he carries him out and tells Trevette to get an ambulance.
Next, we see they're in the hospital. Walker's talking with a nurse, and we know what's going to happen because she's all like, he's not talking to anybody. He won't eat, and no one can get him to talk to and Walker's like, I can.
So Walker goes into the little boy's room, and he's like, hey, it's me, the ranger, and oh, I see you have a picture there. Is that your mom? And he doesn't really say anything. He's like, I'm really good at guessing names. And
what a creepy thing to say.
Right, yeah. And he goes, he's like, let me have a shot here. is it Bertha? He says some random name, and the kid goes, no, her name is
Ellen.
And Walker's like, oh, looks at the photo. He's like, yeah, I guess she could be an Ellen. And there's this weird kind of stilted scene between Haley and Norris here. Then he goes, well, let me guess your name. Is it Bebop?
Jimmy, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And he goes, no, it's Lucas. And then we're like, oh, wait, the title of the episode is Lucas. I get it now.
Yeah, drew that line pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So Walker has just gotten this kid to like talk for the first time since he's been brought into the hospital. And immediately the nurse, she sees this happen, but instead of like encouraging further conversation, she pulls Walker out of the room and is like, hey, just so you know, we ran some tests and he's got AIDS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
He's a goner.
come on. What are we doing here?
Oh.
I knew that he had AIDS based on all the memes or videos and things I've seen. But they did actually explain it, like his mom's a drug addict. The nurse is very clear to say he was definitely born with it. Like, so no one like shot him up with a dirty needle or anything.
Right.
The nurse sees that Walker's finally gotten him to open up, and instead of encouraging that, she pulls Walker out to tell him that the child has AIDS. Walker's like, well, that's pretty awful, so let's make this kid feel better. I'm going to come in and, you know what? I'm going to swear him in as a Texas Ranger, and he's going to be my partner.
Trevette's probably pretty pissed about that.
I know. I was like, man.
Does Trevette ever find out? I don't think so.
Maybe not.
At least not in this episode.
He might be being usurped by Lucas here.
It's possible. But after he's sworn in as a Ranger, Walker takes Lucas out around the hospital grounds, and they share quite the montage.
Yeah.
This is the montage of all montages. They are walking around. They're skipping stones. Walker's teaching them how to skip stones.
Yeah.
The passage of time is blurred. And this is all with the musical backdrop of Gino Vanelli's Rose in December, which is one of the sappiest songs you could ever imagine.
Oh, it's something.
I was going to try to recreate this song. I just didn't have time this week. But
Is it on Spotify? Do we check?
It is. I got it's not on Spotify, but I got a YouTube video of the song, and I've already put it up on the website. So for those of you who are interested, please listen to it because it is it's special.
And they also use it during the outro music.
They do, episode. Yeah. They definitely paid for the rights for it, and they wanted to get the most out of it. So it's just like, wow, this is way over the top.
What is happening? Slow-mo rock throwing with Lucas. I never thought I'd see that in a Walker episode, but
he's skipping stones, man. That's the real deal. Meanwhile, Rafer and Lucas's mom, we see them in a hotel room. Rafer's like shouting at her and snorting cocaine. And she's like, boy, where's my son? And she's looking pretty worse for the wear at this point. She's like, where's my son? I need him. And Rafer's like, oh, you don't need him. They were going to get us. There were cops everywhere. Oh, I had to protect us.
Sniff, sniff.
Grumble, grumble. And I just want to point out that in the hotel room they're staying in, they got the blue sheets again. So Rafer, when he was running out the door, he must have grabbed a couple of those blue sheets.
Well, you always bring your own sheets to CD hotels, and Rafer knows this.
You got to block out the light from, and any sort of view from potential FBI agents.
Oh, man. And it's presumed that, now we know that Lucas has AIDS. His mom probably also has AIDS, too. And maybe that's why she looks so sickly, besides all the drugs she's been doing and presumably taking from Rafer.
At the hospital, we see Walker again, and he's talking to the nurse, and she's like, you've become like a father to him. Would you mind telling him that he has to go to the orphanage? And Walker's like, okay.
No biggie.
Yeah. So Walker ends up taking him to the orphanage, and, he tells Lucas, I went to an orphanage when I was your age too, and it was great. It was no big deal. So he just drops him off at the orphanage, and we meet the woman who's in charge, and looks like a great place. All the kids are playing Frisbee and, Lucas, he's got a devil may care attitude. He's just like, yeah, this is fun. I love this. I just learned how to skip stones so I can do that. Like I'm into it.
And we might mention that, Walker, after he swore Lucas in as a ranger, he's got his own ranger badge. He's got his own, his hat and like maybe even a vest kind of thing.
Vest,
yeah. Oh yeah.
He's ready to go. So, I mean,
he's not going to get beat up at all.
Right.
Oh man. Walker sort of drops him off and he says, "Oh, I'll come visit you, but I got to go find your mom." And Lucas is like, okay. And so there's like this awkward goodbye from Walker wave thing that's maybe going to be the GIF of the week. I'm not sure. It's pretty bad.
We might add that they flash back to a young Walker being delivered to an orphanage at the same time he's delivering Lucas to an orphanage. And at this point, we realize, oh, wow, they're actually going to be introducing some of Walker's backstory simultaneously as they tell this story. And as they do in these situations, they love to fade from modern day Walker back to the child actor, young Walker, and then back to Walker in the present time again, and then back to young Walker, then back to modern day Walker multiple times.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it's like, you get it? You get it? They're the same person. Get it? Let's do it one more time.
Are you sure? Let's just double check.
They do that as he's delivering Lucas.
I will say that the actor who plays young Cordell Walker in this episode, his name is Justin Chapman. People talk about Haley Joel Osment as an actor that kind of, was a child actor in a lot of big things, and then kind of just, for better or worse,
shit on his career, Evan. Come on, dude.
No. For better or worse, left Hollywood. Probably for better, honestly, for their own sanity. I would say another actor like that would be Jake Lloyd, right?
Well, yeah.
This actor here who plays young Cordell Walker is a direct contact to Jake Lloyd, and that he is in Jingle All the Way.
What?
He plays Billy, the kid who's kidnapped at the beginning scene with Turbo Man.
Oh man! So they're holding him over the cliff.
Yep.
Oh wow! Jingle All the Way is one of our go-to holiday movies here.
Oh, for sure.
Pretty awesome.
This actor also played the problem child in Problem Child 3. So.
Oh, he's not the OG problem child. He's the replacement problem child.
Yep.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember being saved by a prune and Bad to the Bone.
Yep. This is the first of a few flashbacks of Walker during his early upbringing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Walker drops Lucas off at the orphanage. Then he and Trevette, they get a lead and they go bust a drug lab that's in a building labeled, quote, the gallery. I don't know what that means. And these guys they're clearly measuring out drugs. And I love what they're doing. They're like, they just got like this big pile of powdered sugar and like this giant Ziploc bag. And this guy's just haphazardly using like a giant like serving spoon to just like spoon powder into this bag, and another guy is taking the bags and placing it on top of like this thing that's clearly meant to look like a scale, but it's just like a box. They're just like, hey, okay, we got a couple boxes in a Ziploc bag and like a bag of flour. Like, what can we do to make this look like they're doing something nefarious?
I almost thought it might be the same room that they filmed the opening scene in.
Yeah, I think it could be.
Yeah, definitely looked pretty similar.
Yeah.
Now, is it because there were blue sheets on the window?
Maybe that's their calling card. Maybe they're the Blue Sheet Bandits.
So, yeah, they bust these guys up, of course. There's, a couple of tough guys who are in charge of the operation. And Walker starts showing Lucas's mom's photo around, asking if anyone's seen him. And they're giving him a hard time.
The best part is he like pulls this photo of Lucas's mother out of his like front shirt pocket that the photo like physically can't fit in. And like after he shows it to the goon and the guy doesn't do anything and Walker just, chokeholds him and throws him to the ground, he fumbles trying to get this photo back in his pocket again because it never was in there to begin with.
I don't know. Some of those shirts probably have huge pockets.
I don't know, but when you've got muscles like Chuck Norris, you're not fitting like a photo in your front shirt and not having it pulverized. He flexes one of those nips, thing's gone.
Pew! Right through it.
Yeah.
Like a 22.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. It's like Magic Mike kind of stuff going on here.
Yeah. So, Walker gets a call from the lady in charge of the orphanage, and the lady in charge of the orphanage clearly doesn't know how to handle anything. And she's like, well, I guess a couple of the kids heard some of our staff talking about how he has AIDS, and now the kids don't want anything to do with him.
They're afraid that they're going to get AIDS from him because they don't understand how AIDS work. And while she's saying this to Walker, who apparently she called to have him come in, Lucas is sitting like at the side of the playground all by himself while the other kids play because, the other kids don't want to catch AIDS from him.
Right. And it's like, this is clearly not how to handle children in a group setting.
Right. And this woman that runs the group home.
I know.
Like, it's like, I don't know what to do. You need to do something. And I was expecting this to be a Walker does your job better than you. But that's not exactly what happens.
Not exactly, but it kind of is too.
It kind of is, yeah.
But also, think about it. These kids on the playground know that Lucas has AIDS, but Lucas doesn't know he has AIDS.
Right. He still doesn't know. Yeah.
That's messed up.
These kids would have told him.
Terrible.
Kids at a group home, they would have told him. But they didn't. So he's still oblivious. And
yeah. So Walker shows up in a rage, and he just walks over to Lucas, picks him up, and kidnaps him.
Right.
Yeah, he tells the people there at the orphanage, like,
send me any paperwork, I'll sign it. And he drives off with one of their kids. And they don't do anything. They don't say anything. They just stand there and watch.
But here's where you're wrong, Bog, because they literally were like, oh, all the kids won't accept him. We don't know what to do. And Walker's just like, okay, I can do your job better than you. Get in my truck, Lucas.
Yep. Yeah, but I expected him to go and like talk to the other kids.
Oh, and have like,
that would have been better.
Story that would bring all the kids together.
Right.
If this were one episode, he would have done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
So Walker takes him back to his ranch, and they share some good moments. They do a lot of horseback riding, and he tells stories about his past, and we get more flashbacks. So we learn that the orphanage actually wasn't that great. So Walker lied to Lucas to get him to go to the orphanage.
That kind of was like, he was like, actually, I really hated going to the orphanage. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you just told him that you liked going to the orphanage. And now you're telling poor Lucas that you actually, I mean, a kid would throw that in your face instantly, right?
Yeah.
Not Lucas, though. He's a gentle soul.
He's a good kid.
And might I say, Haley Joel Osment does an amazing job in this episode because it's literally a two-man show. And this might be the most that we see Walker in a Walker, Texas Ranger episode ever. The most screen time.
Yeah, that's a good point. The most lines, too, for better or for worse.
Exactly. And it's literally him and Haley Joel Osment the majority of the episode.
Yeah, he holds his own. He does a really great job.
Yeah.
At age, what, like 7?
Yeah, it's really young. Really young.
It's really good.
For listeners out there who are interested, we had the honor of interviewing script supervisor Mignon Monroe on a previous podcast, and she talks about filming this episode. Go back and check out that episode. She's awesome, and a lot of good Walker intel there.
During this little nature montage, some eagles there. Evan, accurate bald eagle sounds, right?
Yeah, legit. They nailed it. I dig.
Because he'll go from, it's a bald eagle, but it sounds like a hawk.
Yeah.
But this time it's bald eagle and sounds like a bald eagle.
Yeah, and they really got it.
The montage where Walker has little Lucas on the same horse as him, seated in front of him, and they're riding around the ranch and having some heartfelt dialogue. And it goes back to his backstory. He's like, just like Walker took Lucas from the orphanage, his uncle Ray came and picked him up from the orphanage when he was little, when he found out where he was. And he took him to the Oklahoma Cherokee Indian Reservation and brought Walker there.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of show some young Native American kids playing and a young Walker kind of eyeing them.
They don't immediately accept him because he doesn't really look like them. And he's too proud to admit that he's weak. So it takes a little while for them all to get on the same page. Uncle Ray sort of has a little reckoning, and he realizes that he had problems with the way that his brother was raising Walker. And he said, let's let bygones be bygones. And one of the greatest quotes, he says, learning to be a white man is your problem. Learning to be an Indian is mine.
Yeah. And that's him teaching Walker how to be a Native American.
Yeah. And so Walker learns that all the animals around him are his friends and that he's never quite alone because the eagle is with him. There's salmon in the stream and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, like, salmon? What? They show a shot of sockeye salmon in a river, and I'm thinking, where in Oklahoma or Texas are we seeing sockeye salmon right now? But, that's glossed over, and they did really well with the eagle noise. So,
yeah, I'll give
80%. They're 80%. Yeah.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of which, we got to give a shout out to Jim Steinman, who passed away this last week.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about power ballads in our latest minisode, and Jim Steinman might be just the master architect of the power ballad. He did a lot of stuff for Meatloaf, Bonnie Tyler, and Evan let me know that he even wrote a Batman musical that was never released.
Yeah, as a fervent Meatloaf fan, I think Jim Steinman's flair for the dramatic is worthy of a TV show like Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh, yeah. Like, his songs are as bombastic as a Walker, Texas Ranger episode.
Yeah, they're usually as long, too.
Just unbelievable. I was listening to a Rolling Stone podcast that I sent you, Evan, where they talk about Jim Steinman, and they reference Meatloaf a lot, but the journalists there were referring to Meatloaf as meat. They're like, when I was talking with meat, it's like, oh, is that how you were? It's like,
gross.
I mean, maybe that's what people, if you know him, maybe that's what you call him. Yeah.
Oh, hey, meat.
Is that like that's like a first name basis? I call him meat, maybe. Not meatloaf.
We don't know.
Do some people call him Mr. Loaf?
Oh,
yeah,
my
Mr.
gosh.
Loaf.
But that was probably my favorite part of that podcast, was just hearing him refer to Meatloaf as meat. So,
ew. I don't know how you jumped into that one, but rip. And yeah, so, they're having time on the ranch, and Lucas is learning about Walker's backstory, and, they get back on the horse back to his ranch, and there's a reporter waiting for them. And she's all like, oh, we've heard what you're doing with Lucas, and we think it's great, and we want to write a story about you two. And Walker's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And she's like, I won't talk about his AIDS, but I do think that it can help find his mom.
Might shake her out of the woodwork.
And so Walker's all like, okay, I guess it's all right. And they pose for like an epic photo.
Yeah, it's like Walker and Lucas in front of a horse, album shot.
Mm-hmm. They publish the story, and we see Lucas's mom reading all about it in the newspaper. But Rafer's not buying it. He's all like, no, man, they want to smoke us out. This can't possibly be right. And, he's onto it. He's a smart guy.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. And in between every line he says, he's like snorting lines of coke.
Yep.
Yeah, real recklessly, too.
He is sharp as a tack.
He's like, it's all over his face.
And his snaggle teeth are just like,
oh, man,
so good.
Somehow he's got like a huge gut. You're doing drugs like that, you can't keep that weight on, But, hey, it's a gift, I guess. He's a talented drug addict.
Yeah. It could just be a giant tapeworm.
Right.
I mean, he only does that on the weekends.
Right.
Recreationally.
Yeah.
Cut back to the ranch, and Walker's all like, we're just cleaning off this horse, and she's real hungry. She's eating for two. And Lucas learns about the birds and the bees, as do we, from a horse.
Do we ever?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, she's got a foal in her. That's a baby horse. And Lucas is like, I can feel it kicking. Cut to like that night, I guess. And this horse is in labor. And Walker's going to help this horse give birth. And Lucas, he's going to be right there. He's in it.
He is. They're guiding the horse out of the other horse, and you're just like, "Whoa!" Was that a real birth? You think?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Was like, yeah. We got to see
more than I expected to see.
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah. And there's like a stunt double that's like a farm guy that they dressed up like Walker, who's actually birthing the horse. They just see him from behind.
When they show, Walker and Lucas, they're over like a horse. It's not really a horse, right? And they go to the other angle where you can't see them.
Yeah.
And we see a whole lot more.
Yeah. I mean, if the topic of, orphans with AIDS isn't enough to get you, maybe watching a horse crowning is enough for you.
Yeah.
Because, this episode just gives and gives.
It sure does. Yeah, that took me by surprise. I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah. But in the next scene, it looks like Lucas has gifted this horse.
Yeah, I didn't get that because the horse, I mean,
it couldn't possibly be the same horse, right?
No, it couldn't. And they don't say that it is, but the horse he has is a younger horse.
Yeah.
But not like a day-old horse.
Right.
Yeah. And this scene right here where Walker gifts Lucas the horse might be the only time we see Alex, Trevette, and CD for an extended period of time in this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. It's really weird.
Alex is like, it's so great what you're doing for him. And then like us who have like seen her in other episodes are like, why couldn't you show me this commitment, Walker? And then
she's like leaning on him, like
yeah. And earlier in the episode, Trevette was like, Walker, you told me never to get this connected to any case I'm working on personally.
He's like, tell that to Lucas. It's like, that doesn't really write this off.
Yeah. Walker's going against his own code and making it personal, which I understand because Lucas, he's been through a lot, and Walker has that whole ranch all to himself. So it's good that he's sharing it with Lucas, but I could understand if Alex Cahill was a little upset that she didn't get a little bit of that commitment from Walker. Just throwing that out there.
Alex, Trevette, and CD are all standing on the porch while Lucas is riding this horse for the first time, and they're all like talking about philosophies of raising a child. It's so weird. Trevette's like, oh, you got to do like piano lessons. And CD's like, no, this kid's wild buckaroo. He's got a free spirit. Bah, look at him ride that horse. No piano lessons for him. And
those will mess him up. It's like, what?
Trevette's like, I took piano lessons. And CD's like, I chose.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Whatever. It's like, is that a diss or are you?
I don't know. It's just really weird.
They just had to get some lines in the episode.
Exactly.
So, that night, while visions of sugar plums should be dancing in Lucas's head, instead he's having super trippy, weird nightmares of his mother reaching out for him amidst strobe lights and fog. And at the last second, right before she grabs his hand, it turns into Rafer Cobb's snarling face.
Oh my god, so creepy.
Oh man,
like nightmare. It was like a Freddy Krueger nightmare scenario.
It was real weird.
Do you guys remember Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh yeah,
that's all I could think of. When I saw that, I was like, this is like Are You Afraid of the Dark? That same level of cheese.
Yeah. Walker hears Lucas scream as he wakes up from this horrible nightmare escape that we were just subjected to. And he comes over and Lucas asks about Uncle Ray, and Walker's like, well, Uncle Ray crossed the river a little while ago. And in a roundabout way, Walker's teaching Lucas about life with the horse and death with Uncle Ray. Lingering over this is the fact that Lucas probably doesn't have too much time to live because he has AIDS.
Which he still doesn't know about.
Yeah, which Walker has neglected to tell him about.
The next day, CD is babysitting, playing Nerf guns, I guess, with Lucas, while Walker and Trevette are trying to track down Lucas's mom. And while they're trying to track her down, she just calls them and is like, I want my son back. And Walker's like, your son has AIDS. You probably do too.
Right. Yeah. He's like, Trevette, trace the call. And then they go back to the mother, and I'm looking at the background of the scene. I'm like, oh, she's in the courthouse.
All right, it looks familiar.
Yeah.
she's calling inside the same building they're in, and Trevette's tracker tracks it to a payphone.
The call's coming from within from inside the house.
Classic.
Yeah. And so they run down and they see a payphone dangling by its cord. And once they see that, you're like, okay, they could very easily find this woman.
Yeah. You know what she looks like.
Instead, they just give up.
Well, looks like we lost her.
Right.
Right.
Call security at the front desk.
I get the sense Walker doesn't really want to find her, because in the next scene, he just takes Lucas to the amusement park and they do bumper boats and they do mini golf.
Can we break this down here? Can we break this down?
Montage.
This is the most domestic we've seen Walker ever, right?
Yeah, this might as well have been a high C commercial.
Yeah, it was. It was like it started out with them playing like mini golf. Oh, and here's another thing that breaks canon here. Lucas wins all these events.
Ooh.
Walker doesn't.
Yeah, good point. That's not realistic.
I'm just going to say that he was letting him win.
Well, I mean, obviously. But
of course he was. Are you kidding?
I don't think he has the ability to let people win.
I know Walker could get a hole-in-one with his eyes closed in mini golf.
Yeah, he would accidentally win
Yeah,
while
his
trying
first
to
hit
lose.
at mini golf, it ricochets, and then Lucas just sinks it. Yeah. And then they're doing
Bumper boats.
You can't really win in bumper boats, but
No, you can't really.
But it was weird to see Walker in a bumper boat. That just didn't seem right. It was definitely
there's something dirty about that.
Yeah,
it was great. That was great.
Yeah, and then they go to the batting cages.
Batting cages, yeah.
Right, yeah.
It was kind of like he was using Lucas's body as a baseball bat to hit the ball, right?
Pretty much, yeah. He was teaching him about proper form by lifting him up while he swung the bat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not how it goes, but,
Then they go to the go-karts, okay? And I'm like, all right, so Walker, he's got to win the race. He's got to win the race. But the front two cars are Walker and Lucas in a dead heat. Lucas pulls in for the win.
Yeah.
And again, as you said, I don't think Walker doesn't let people win. So Lucas has to be that good.
It makes sense, and he's going to die.
Could be.
That can never stand in this universe.
No, there can't be two.
Right.
They did do a good job in this episode of establishing a connection between Lucas and Walker, though. And this scene did do that further because it's like, oh, remember that time they did bumper boats?
Right,
yeah.
But it may have gone a little overkill.
Yeah, I don't know.
They'd already had the stone skipping scene, the horse thing.
If you compare this to The Neighborhood, for instance, with that little girl who's the singer in the choir,
Right.
Walker is probably about as close to that girl as he is to Lucas, honestly, like in some way. But the only thing he ever did with that girl was go and watch her sing at church. Because with Lucas, he's doing like go-karts and everything else.
Well, I mean, he had a history with her of hearing her and knowing her. So old friend, well, she was 7 years old, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is like an old friend versus a best friend situation. And this is a best friend situation, which is infinitely worse as far as fate goes.
No, I think technically Walker adopted this kid is what we're led to believe, right?
Kinda.
He might have signed papers. Maybe he was like a foster parent.
Here's another question. Why doesn't anyone try to figure out who Lucas's dad is?
It could be Rayford Cobb, the bad guy in this episode.
It's not. She calls him her kid.
Okay.
And he leaves the kid behind and doesn't care about him. So
yeah, there was that scene of him kind of being like, who cares about the kid?
Right.
Anyway, that montage was out of control, but I can't say I didn't like it.
It was entertaining.
It's just, we're used to seeing Walker roundhouse kick someone's face. So seeing him get bested by a 7-year-old in mini golf is a bit jarring.
Yeah.
So they get a little lead. They know where Cobb's staying. They found the hotel. This time, Cobb tries to get Lucas's mom to go with him again, but she is pretty far gone, and he can't get her, so he just jumps out the window himself and escapes. And now they have Lucas's mother, Ellen, in custody, but she's taken to the hospital because she's in real rough shape.
Presumably from AIDS, which she hasn't had a chance to get diagnosed yet.
Right. Or some sort of complications with that. So she's reunited with Lucas in the hospital. And as with pretty much any adult patient Walker visits in the hospital, if they've got, the little heart monitor next to the bed, that thing's flatlining. That thing is gone.
Yeah. And she's gone.
Yeah. And she's like pulls Walker over and she's like, look out for my son. And he's like, yeah, okay. All right, that's fine. And then all of a sudden she's just like, all right, I'm dead now.
Right after she was like, I'm going to be fine, Lucas.
She doesn't say it's going to be okay. She says, I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay. Yeah. Which I guess if you look at it a little deeper, it's like, yeah, she is going to be okay.
Yeah. She's going to a good place.
I'm not going to be alive, but I'll be okay.
And poor Lucas has to literally watch his mother die in front of him. Meanwhile, Walker, he runs for a nurse, but doesn't take Lucas with him.
Yep.
He leaves Lucas with his dead mom, gets a nurse, and then...
To be continued, baby.
Yeah.
So young and tender, crushed like a rose in December.
Oh, no. If Roundhouse Roulette, if we ever get a gig somewhere, we definitely have to cover that song.
Oh, yeah. Put that on the list.
It's the...
It's definitely a room clearer. So End of the Night is the last song.
The actual,
Last call.
the full version of it has like a female opera singer singing half of it as well.
It's like, you guys don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You don't have to go home, but if you stay here, you're going to listen to this.
Yep. So drink up good. Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd love to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations that are featured on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Lucas Part 1 on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking. Complete results of which can be found on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away.
Oh, gross. Look at that rat tail.
That thing is heinous.
Hey guys, want to play Pogs?
Not when you're swinging that around, man. We're liable to catch swine flu from that thing.
Yeah, come back after you've got the prerequisite bowl cut, and then maybe we'll accept you into our posse.
Come on, Adam. Let's go break into this hacky sack away from this varmint.
Later, rat boy.
Oh, why won't anyone play with me?
How you hanging in there, Evan? I was in the neighborhood and wanted to see how you were settling into your new school.
Oh, Ranger Bob, I'm beginning to think rat tails aren't cool anymore.
Ah, that reminds me of something I went through when I was a young boy. Would you like to hear a story?
Oh, more than anything, Ranger Bob.
Okay, but first, even Ranger Bob needs to keep the lights on. Folks, we here at Roundhouse Roulette have pledged to deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger, to the world. If you'd like to lend us a hand in that mission, please share the pod with a friend. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or hit up our Patreon page. Likewise, we've recently added some fresh items at roundhouseroulette.com. Most importantly, though, thank you for listening. Okay, so where was I?
You once had a rat tail when you were little too, right?
Oh, hell no. That's not my style.
Oh.
As you can see here, I'm still rocking a genuine moulet. Sure, kids were mean to me, but every style comes around again. What's important is you learn to love your true self. Others be damned. Sure, I had doubts myself, and there were days I almost dropped the old moulet into the trash bin. But on those days, I always looked to the stewards of the Camaro cut.
Who are they, Ranger Bob?
Boy, I'm going to have to introduce you to Rod Stewart and his soccer rocker, and country music legend Marty Stewart and his Tennessee top hat. After all this time, they've stood by their style because they learned to love themselves.
Gee whiz. I guess I'll keep this rat tail after all. Thanks, Ranger Bob.
Oh, hell no. Let's see if we can find a bowl in the cafeteria and cut that sucker off. Folks, we're going to let you get back to the show.
Rest assured, none of us have gotten haircuts.
Yeah, we're keeping our options open here. I mean, all three of us could either cut a sick mullet, rat tail, anything.
I'm thinking of the railroad tracks. You remember those?
I've honestly thought about, next time I get a haircut, bringing a picture of Chuck Norris and saying, I want this.
You really think you can pull that off?
What if all three of us go to Supercuts and have that done? For
We should
$10?
get different eras of Chuck Norris. Like you can get like the Octagon Chuck Norris, where it's just like this really short bangs across the front.
All right. So this is, I'm putting this in the cards here. Are you guys down for this?
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
All right.
All right. Well, I definitely drew the short straw this week because I have to go first
Yeah,
in
you
rating
do.
this one. I will say this episode had some action shoehorned into it, but honestly, it was forgettable. Even though there were roundhouse kicks, and they all happened over the course of maybe 15 seconds in the entire episode. And the rest of it was Walker skipping stones and bumper boating with a child. So yeah, that alone knocks it down in my eyes. And then, yeah, subject matter, pretty horrible. So I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to give this a bad rating because it's like got that sort of cult status and is very well known. But if I'm rating this off of the standards I use to rate other Walker episodes, this is a pretty poor episode. So I think I'm going like a 2 on this one.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember any of the fights? Because
probably
I really
accurate.
don't, and I take notes.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
the sound effects from the fights, but there weren't that many of them.
And then you think of the storyline, and it's pretty awful. We came into it wanting to watch an episode of Walker, and we were force fed this.
Look, yeah. And all right.
Like, imagine someone who's just like tuning in, who's like, "Oh, I love Walker, Texas Ranger. I'm so excited for the next episode."
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, they tune in, they got their popcorn and everything, and boom, this is dropped on their lap, and they're like, "What? This is." Let me flip the channel to Touched by an Angel. That's better. This is basically Walker's attempt at Touched by an Angel.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, immediately after finishing this, I was like, yeah, how can I rate this? Because there's so many different angles you can rate it on. At its best, Walker is guilt-free escapist action. And this episode certainly was not that. No. And sometimes it can be entertaining the way they shoehorn in moral lessons and social awareness. I don't even really think that they really brought a lot of awareness to AIDS as far as this episode. It could have been any disease that he had.
Could have been cancer. Yeah, it could have been anything.
Elephantiasis.
Yeah. And I do feel like they were trying to do a good thing. And that's what is always what makes the show so charming sometimes is its innocence with which they handle serious topics in a venue that is not built to handle those topics. And that's kind of what makes the show great, but only when the balance is right. And I don't think the balance was right in this case here. I don't think your average Walker Texas Ranger viewer is going to be like, oh man, I got to put on Lucas Part 1. So
Never.
I'm going to match you there with a 2, Evan. This needs some tough love.
Yeah, I'm not far off. But I'm going to bring up a few things we kind of glazed over. The transitions in this episode.
Oh, dude. Yes.
So over the top.
Yeah, Zoom transitions in this one with the sound effect.
There was one transition to a jarring scene of the bad guy that was brutal, right?
Yeah, and it was just like the transition, just like if you were nodding off,
That woke you
that
up.
woke you right up. That woke you right up.
Yeah, it's transitions. This might be a 10.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm trying to look on the positive side of things, and that's definitely one of them.
I mean, this was season 6, right? It's got 0 explosions, 0 vehicle chases.
Right. That's tough. Can I bring it above 2 though? Can I bring it above 2?
Haley Joel Osment is a great actor in this. You got to give it to him.
Well,
he
Yeah.
he
and that was
does
kinda
kind
my-
of save it.
Yeah, he's good.
The acting and the ridiculousness of the montages and stuff like that, and the Eagles, like that's the stuff that I would be like, okay, that is like a Walker episode. So I guess for that reason, I'm just to stray. I'm gonna bring it up to 3 with the hope that the next episode really brings it home. I think for one single purpose, I think we will be able to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
One line, I think we'll.
Yeah. All they have to do is have Rayford Cobb do a line of blow off the hood of Chuck Norris's car, off the hood of Walker's truck, and I'd be good.
The disrespect shown.
Exactly. And then he'd throw down.
The truck would roundhouse kick him.
He is.
The hood would come up and just smack him in the face.
He is always armed and always dangerous.
This is true. Yeah.
Well, that gives this episode a roundhouse rating of 2.333 boots to the face. And I think we can all agree that being Walker's best friend can only end in tragedy. But let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. So normally we'd be spinning the wheel and seeing what the next episode is, but we are about to be subjected to Lucas Part 2. That's Season 6, Episode 4. And if you're a glutton for punishment or want to see how this thing shakes out, please join us next time when we discuss that episode. In the meantime, share your opinions with us on Facebook and Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. And rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next week,
May the
eyes of the Ranger
be
upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.